It's a rather giant FU. That's not the type of language, folks, we usually get from within inside Buckingham Palace. That's not the type of language courtiers working on behalf and closely with King Charles and Prince William usually choose to put in the public domain. But Prince Harry and Meghan Markle have gone too far this time. And the picture that Meghan posted yesterday, with no words, simply her husband and the two children, so soon after that interview where he attacked the royal family, where he claimed there was an establishment stitch-up, and when the delusional freak even suggested that people actually want him dead, has been a step too far. So we're going to get analysis from the Royal News Network and its editor, Brittany, in just one moment. But first, let me take you through this Daily Mail article by its royal editor, Rebecca English, which notes the Royal Insider's furious reaction to Meghan's Instagram salvo. Just hours after Meghan's latest post dropped, one Royal Insider, Rebecca English, reports lost no time in letting their feelings be known. Well, that's a rather giant FU, isn't it? They remarked to me, she reported. Featuring an idyllic image of Prince Harry walking through the gardens of their Montecito home, daughter Lilibet on his shoulders and son Archie's hand in his, its timing was far from accidental. That's the one thing the Duchess of Sussex does not have in common with the royal family, knowing the power of a well-timed image. Amid what it tells us in the continuing shockwaves of Harry's media tsunami on Friday is clear. Sod the lot of you, he doesn't need the UK anyway. And Brittany posted on this, Meghan Markle can't even muster up a comment for her beleaguered husband. She must be furious about his legal bills and disastrous interview. Newsflash to the cosplay royals, no matter how cute your kids are, no one wants to pay for your security. You're on your own. Oh, and by the way, this photo looks faked too, or at least seriously manipulated. Royally Sage made the point that there are blurred lines in some places and sharp lines in others. This photo is fake. So, Brittany, this is an extraordinary response from the royal family. You know, the Daily Mail, they're not like me. They're very... They work in lockstep with the palace. They're part of the royal rota. They only report what the palace wants out there. It's a rather giant FU. Finally, Brittany, after months and months of kid glove treatments, the palace has gone nuclear. Enough is enough. Harry's interview with the BBC on Friday, where he revealed the most revolting details of his father's fight with cancer and showed just complete and delusion and hysteria about the reality of the situation, is clearly a bridge too far. What do you make of it?
I mean, the whole thing just screams of Harry's paranoia. And the picture itself is just really offensive. So they're just walking around in the garden. So, I mean, the people of Instagram can see the kids apparently, a little bit, but King Charles can't. I mean, Harry went on about his father, struggling with cancer, and then he won't bring his kids to see his father, just shows their backs, showed them basically, I mean, the image is we're turning our backs on you. We're turning our backs on the royal family. While Harry is still attempting to make reconciliation efforts, I mean, honestly, it's such mixed messaging, but I can understand why the palace is furious. They have done everything in their power to allow Harry and Meghan to have their own private life, you could say, and then all Harry and Meghan do is throw mud at them. And I think the palace needs to take a firm stand here and start to make the efforts to sever any and all ties with Harry and Meghan.
And Brittany, the thing is that it could have all been so different. If Harry had any idea about how things work, if he cared, if he read the mood music, it could have all been different. Look at this reporting from Matt Wilkinson, the royal editor of The Sun, who wrote, his astonishing 30-minute chat to the BBC from California, where he is now based, came without any warning to Buckingham Palace or the King, who has been having cancer treatment for over a year. The outburst came hours after Court of Appeal judges ruled out Harry's bid for taxpayer-funded armed protection that he lost when he quit royal duties in 2020. He told the BBC that verdict was a good old-fashioned establishment stitch-up and blamed the royal household for influencing the decision to reduce his security. Moments before the broadcast, sources close to the king had told the son of Charles's frustration that Harry's supporters suggested his father doesn't care about Harry's family. Insiders had also suggested a possible way forward between the pair depended on Harry's reaction to the court loss. Minutes later, they got their answer as Harry again raged against the state, the royal household, his father, brother William, and stepmother Camilla. Speaking before Harry's TV meltdown, the source told The Sun, "The king is at heart a loving and generous man. That love has been sorely tested by this case and so many other issues over recent times, but there is now a chance for his son to move forwards rather than dwell on past grievances. From his father's perspective, the door has been shut by necessity while this painful issue played out through the proper judicial channels, but it has not been locked forever, nor the key thrown away." So, Brittany, that's where Buckingham Palace stood before the interview. Then Harry goes on the British Bashing Corporation. Very interesting. He chose the BBC given their previous interview with Princess Diana, Martin Bashir. William's furious with the corporation as a result. He went on the BBC, Brittany, and says this. "I need you to do something for me right now. It is free. It is easy. It is simple. Just hit that subscribe button on YouTube. That's because over 50% of you watching this video haven't done that yet. And it is the best chance of reconciliation. And that interview threw it all away."
It definitely did, because what Harry did, of course, is go on and on and on about how this is basically all his father's fault and in part the government's fault, when Charles really doesn't have any control over this. Ravik is the one who determines who gets security and who doesn't. And Harry seems to think that just because he's a prince, he's automatically entitled to full-time security protection whenever he wants, in any country he wants. But that's not the case. There's a lot of royals out there with titles who don't get this level of security. And this was always going to happen to him. And so in reality, this whole thing is just a giant temper tantrum because he's sort of getting hit with reality, which was that this was always going to happen. Harry and Meghan were always going to get their security stripped down at some point. And he just seems to cruelly, I think, blame his father as if his father doesn't love him, want to protect him, and those sorts of things, when this is an issue of state. Taxpayer dollars are expended to help protect the royals. And the government is responsible to those taxpayers to justify who they're giving this security to. And it just can't be Harry and Meghan. They're not important enough to the system anymore. And they've left the country in royal duties and any sort of representation of the UK. So Harry just sounds completely deluded in his ramblings about this and is just so trying to portray his side, which is just wholly untrue on just about every single level. He's completely deluded about this situation.
And of course, Brittany, what's very interesting to me, and I watch coverage of the royal family as much as I watch the royal family itself, is that the language is changing, Brittany. There is a real turn from within the palace. It's almost like, okay, Harry, you're going to play dirty. We can play dirty too. Because it's not just the FU briefing to the Mail. They're also using this word, which I like a lot, especially in these circumstances, gaslighting. And they say here that it's the withering verdict on Harry's truce-ending broadside as they tell Rebecca English of King's Pain and that the royals will now never forgive him. Now, let me just remind everyone, the way the Daily Mail works, I worked there, of course, for a good couple of years before launching Outspoken. The Mail will only take official briefing from via the palace. That is how it works. The head of King Charles's media operation, Tobin Andre, was previously deputy editor, a very senior executive at the Daily Mail. You know, I like just being honest with people, Brittany, about how it all works. I believe the media don't like to report on all of those links, but I think it's important that I tell people the truth about how these situations work. So trust me, this is coming directly from the royal family. And this is how the article reads. At the end of the day, it's his truth. And when it comes to recalling his childhood as he sees it, he has every right to say what he experienced, they said. I still maintain, for the sake of the family, his family, he should never have written that bloody book. But I also can't entirely disagree with his decision to do so. But even those more sympathetic to his cause believe his latest legal battle, and in particular last night's extraordinary BBC meltdown, has crossed a line. Harry's decision to fight his father's government in the very courts that dispense justice in the monarch's name has been more than a financial and PR disaster for the prince. It has proved to be a personal catastrophe that has driven more of a wedge between himself and Charles than any backstabbing memoir or tell-all television series. The monarch, I am told, has effectively been too fearful of speaking to his son for the past 3 years in case anything he said was used as part of Harry's case, thereby sparking a constitutional crisis. Charles has also found it particularly hurtful that sources close to the prince have gone so far as to suggest he could get to see his grandchildren again if only he were to step in and reinstate the family's security detail full-time in the UK. And of course, Brittany, it was a bribe. It was an absolute bribe. And I will back up that reporting, and regular viewers of Outspoken will know I have reported quite literally for years that the reason why Charles and William initially cut contact was because they were so terrified of their comments either being used in court or being used in the media, being leaked to people. Remember at the time, Brittany, it was like Gayle King and Oprah Winfrey. There was like a direct line to those two and Prince Harry, or more likely Meghan. And even after Prince Philip and the Queen's funeral, Charles and William, and how shocking is this, Brittany, they would not be on their own with Harry. He wanted to meet one-on-one. They refused because they knew there had to be another witness there. So in case Harry said, oh, Charles said something racist, or, William threatened this, the other one would be able to back them up and say that didn't happen. So this isn't a new thing, but I guess the point is, once Harry actually turned this into a legal case, not versus a newspaper, Brittany, not versus an individual, but versus the king's government, it ratcheted up the potential importance of why Charles just couldn't have that contact.
Exactly, because they had to keep their distance. I mean, it was really smart of them to go, okay, we can talk to you, but there has to be somebody else here, because Harry and Meghan are more than willing to run their mouths, and they're more than willing to gaslight people in order to try to spin things to their perspective. Now, it's kind of a question of how much is Harry gaslighting versus how much of it is actually just simple delusion on his part when he was on the BBC. But it's so incredibly clear that William and Charles were unbelievably aware that things could be totally twisted. And as representatives of the state, because Charles is head of state of the UK, he had to be very careful not to be seen as interfering in a personal grievance. Harry kept calling for that. It's like, but if your father interfered, this would be clear interference by the monarch, which would not go down well. Harry is so consumed with himself that he's more than willing to put his father's reign on the line by going, oh, you need to interfere in just this for me. And there's so many other people in the UK, so many other people in the royal family who don't get full-time security. Harry said, oh, I did 2 tours in Afghanistan. I was like, I'm sure you can find tens of thousands of people in the UK who have done the same thing and don't get 24-hour security. So Harry here is just completely out of touch. And he's also just, again, very calculating and cruel. It's basically saying you won't see your kids or your grandchildren unless you go my way and help me get the security. And it's just so heartless of Harry and Meghan to do this.
And look, he virtually admitted it, Brittany. I mean, he wasn't really hiding it. There's actually a point in the interview, let's take a look at it actually, where the BBC interviewer, who I have to say I thought did a really terrible job. She was so sympathetic to Harry. There was no difficult follow-up. It was just like, oh, I've got a royal in front of me. I'm going to go along with his narrative, whereas actually nothing was off limits, we're told. So she needed to challenge and question and poke holes in the argument in a way that Oprah Winfrey didn't do, in a way that Tom Bradby didn't do, in a way that Anderson Cooper didn't do. But again, it's the BBC. We know why Harry chose the BBC. It was always going to be softball because the BBC is trying to get back on side with Harry because of the fallout over the Diana Panorama interview. Anyway, have a look at what happened when she asked very specifically in regards to Charles. But first, people like Andrew Huberman, Rhonda Patrick, and even Joe Rogan have talked about a compound called ephecatokin found in dark chocolate and green tea. Now, it's shown to improve blood flow, delivering more oxygen to the muscles and brain. Studies show that it reduces stress and fatigue while improving mood and enhancing muscle growth, strength, and recovery. One study found it boosted muscle growth factors by nearly 50% in just a week. But don't reach for the chocolate bars, okay? Because processing destroys those compounds and you'd need an impossible amount to get results. That's why Verso created Morning Bean, a rich, chocolatey morning brew packed with epicatokin, cocoa, polyphenols, antioxidants, and electrolytes to fuel energy, performance, focus, and longevity. But unlike coffee or other coffee alternatives, it supports muscle recovery, cardiovascular health, and cognitive function, all without caffeine crashes. Cocoa powders, drinks, and products are commonly contaminated with high levels of toxic heavy metals, but Verso conducts third-party testing on every batch to ensure they have pure, high-quality cocoa, prioritizing safety and high flavonol content. Now, I actually started taking Morning Bean to replace my energy drink in the morning, but you can do so to replace your first cup, or actually, even if you don't want to give up coffee altogether, your second cup, because it will make you feel more focused and energized. I also love how I get my daily dose of superfoods from it. So if you're looking to improve your health with something that's actually backed by research, click the link below or head on over to morning.ver.so. Use the coupon code outspoken to get 15% off your first order. Also, I can tell you, I love it so much. The taste is what is so amazing about Morning Bean. It's almost like a hot chocolate, and it's so healthy. So I can never believe it. So let me just repeat the address. morning.ver.so/outspoken. Use the code outspoken. You will get 15% off your first order. But now, back to the show. Totally disillusional. Sorry, the guy's totally delusional because he can use whatever word games he thinks is really clever. And trust me, there's nothing clever about Prince Harry, but it would be exactly the same thing. It would still be Charles interfering in a process that a monarch is not expected to interfere of, thus creating a constitutional crisis. It was always untenable. There was another part of the interview, Brittany, where Harry said, well, I was told by everyone that I was going to win. I'm so shocked. And it's like, that shows you you're surrounded by nutters and yes men who are using you and making money off you because you've got rid of everyone who in the past would have told you the truth.
Exactly. I mean, you even think of his security situation. It's like if you inflame his paranoia, I mean, he'll pay you forever. And I'm not saying that's what they're actually doing, but Harry is just, I think, so unaware of that sort of reality. And then he claims to say, well, you know, I value life, or we all value life, or whatever, but he just seems to not value his actual biological family's lives and their interaction with his children. He just seems to want to keep them away. And he's completely a hypocrite because he says, well, I can't come to the UK and get security unless I'm invited. Well, they've been invited plenty of time to things and they don't go. So that's another, you could say, lie there, because he could have taken his kids to the coronation. They would have been protected under the apparatus of the broader security effort for the coronation and could have been able to attend, maybe like view things from Buckingham Palace and those sorts of things. But no. He had to fly home immediately to go and see his family. So again, I think he's completely lying there. It's complete BS. And Harry is just being, I think, very cruel to his father in so many ways here.
Of course he is. And Brittany, such an important day, not just for the United Kingdom, but for the Commonwealth and actually the whole Western world. The UK has come to a standstill on this bank holiday for VE Day. And just look at this incredible picture, which is currently splashing on the Daily Mail. A salute to heroes King, Queen, William and Kate watch red arrows fly past from Buckingham Palace balcony with George, Charlotte and Louis as millions across Britain honor wartime heroes on VE Day. Now, Brittany, we know that Harry would be absolutely desperate to be there, but of course he's not. And he's not because, as you say, he's trying to prove a point. It's not actually about security. Mm-hmm. He could have come to something like this. Okay, he wouldn't have been on the balcony, Brittany, but he still could have played a role. And maybe if he had maintained good relationships with the family, they would have thrown him a bone and given him some sort of formal role on the day. But he didn't. And I think when you look at these gorgeous pictures, especially of William, Catherine, and the family today, he's not really a big loss, is he?
He's not. And I think actually that is what's really bothering him in many ways, is that it's becoming so abundantly clear that although he's left, and there is a little bit, I think, of a vacuum of another younger royal couple or royal representing the UK. However, the future is secure. George is just a little more than 6 years away from being an adult. And so everybody is going to move on to the Wales' kids, especially as they get older into teenagers. There will be so many crushes on George and everything from young girls. And so this is a family that has moved on and is not desperately clinging to Harry. And I think Harry really thought that if he left, that they would just be clamoring to get him back. And they're not. They've completely moved on. They're showing a very united front, and the royal family is solid. And although, again, I think they could use another younger royal member who's currently able to be a working royal, at the same time, we have a solid cast of amazing royals working. Sophie, we have Edward and Camilla and Anne, of course. And we also have the Duke of Kent there as well. And the Wales' kids will be adults here before too long. So Harry has definitely missed out. And the royal family, at this point, I mean, I'm sure in a personal capacity, they miss him, but they have well and truly moved on when it comes to the future of the monarchy.
Brittany, let's have a look at some of the best moments today, because actually before they ended up on the balcony, there was a different role for the royals, and it created some really lovely moments like this. It'll be the last day, sadly, the last one of these major VE days where we have the incredible veterans there. Then the pomp and ceremony with the balcony moment, Brittany. This is when they emerged. And Brittany, it is all building up to that moment of the fly past, which is just so amazing. I think we should just take it in.
It always gives you chills every single time. I've been in that crowd twice for the coronation and the Jubilee back in 2022. And it is just so amazing to be there. So amazing to see all of them on the balcony. I mean, I still miss a larger balcony, but I think the royal family is strong. They're showing a united front. It was so great to see them interacting, especially with the veterans. Catherine seemed to have a wonderful conversation to the gentleman seated next to her. And so Charles also had a wonderful conversation with the woman seated next to him. And so it seemed like there was just a lot of love going around there in that particular instance, and a lot of appreciation for those who gave their lives to service and those who were impacted by serving during the Second World War. So I'm so excited to see the royal family out there. I wish I could be there, but I couldn't this time. But so exciting again to see everyone. And it's such a good representation of the monarchy and its future.
Absolutely, Brittany. And on a personal level, this is a very important and special day for me, because I always think of all the veterans of World War II, but especially my four beloved grandparents, three of whom fought for England or for the United Kingdom, for the Allies in World War II, and my fourth, who was in the Blitz, in the London Blitz. So let me just tell you about them. There's William Thomas Wootton. He is my dad's father. He celebrated his 21st birthday behind enemy lines in a Belgian village. The British Army was trying to liberate that village from the Germans as a member of the Royal Engineers. And it really haunted him, that experience, for his whole life. My grandmother, Catherine Taylor, so she was my dad's mum. She was 12 years old when the war started, living in South Shields. But by the time it ended, that's Kath. By the time it ended, she would be a member of the Auxiliary Territorial Service alongside, and she was the exact same age as the late Queen Elizabeth II. And that was like the home army, the home guard, where lots of young British women served to protect the homeland. And then my other grandpa, John George Wheeler, he was a heroic RAF airman. That's him. While his wife, Sylvia Jean Cook, she was just a teenager. And I would be haunted by her stories, there she is, about what life was like surviving the Blitz in London. So for me, I think a lot about those four very special people today. And it breaks my heart. It genuinely breaks my heart that we are losing the greatest generation. I learned so much growing up with my grandparents who were part of World War II because they looked at life in a very different way. When you've grown up in that sort of world, when you've grown up in a world of rationing, when you've grown up with your houses being bombed, when you've grown up not knowing if your brothers and sisters will return from the front line, whether that telegram man is going to arrive at your letterbox with the dreaded news, a lot of the modern issues that we would get so concerned about just never mattered to them. Just never mattered to them because they knew what it was like to survive that war. So a very important day. I think the royal family did a great job. Such a shame, of course, that it has been overshadowed by that interview.
Today's royal update focuses on Meghan Markle's latest Instagram post, which appeared shortly after Prince Harry's recent interview and has sparked fresh discussion about the ongoing tensions within the royal family. The biggest talking point is the timing of Meghan's social media post. Many royal commentators believe it was carefully timed following Prince Harry's interview, while others argue it may simply have been a routine personal update. Either way, it quickly became a major topic of discussion online. According to media reports, some palace insiders were less than impressed by the latest development. Although there has been no official response from Buckingham Palace, commentators suggest the post has added to the ongoing speculation surrounding Harry and Meghan's relationship with the royal family. The video also explores how every public move made by the Duke and Duchess of Sussex continues to attract intense media attention. Supporters see Meghan's social media activity as part of her independent public life, while critics believe the timing raises questions about her intentions. Whether the Instagram post was carefully planned or simply coincidental remains open to interpretation. One thing is certain: every appearance, interview, and social media update involving Harry and Meghan continues to generate headlines and keep the royal conversation alive. What do you think? Was the timing meaningful, or is the reaction being exaggerated? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more royal family news and analysis.